Child wounded by rejection, incest, molestation, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse can become an adult functioning in childish ways, not being able to put away childish things. Listen to Arrested Development Ministries and hear the hearts of victims who have become victors and sufferers who are now survivors. Learn what great things God can do for you to heal your heart wherever you hurt.
Every 2 minutes, another man, woman, and child is sexually assaulted. The effects can be devastating. Volunteer for RAIN and make a difference. A few minutes of your time can help someone take back years of their life. Join RAIN today, and together we can make a difference. Visit RAIN.org. That's RAINN.org to find your local volunteer areas and help give the gift of hope.
The right to be not afraid.
Child sexual abuse teaches children to live in fear. They feel alone, ashamed, and afraid.
I have the right to be left alone.
Children who are sexually abused often blame themselves.
I have the right to be protected.
Every 2 minutes, someone is sexually assaulted.
If this has happened to you, you don't have to go it alone. It is never too late to get help.
The wounds of childhood will affect us for a lifetime. All children, because they don't have the chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, they don't have the chemicals to see the whole picture. So everything that is not right in their life, every hurt, every wound, every loss, everything that happens to a child that doesn't feel good in the limbic system, the child says, what's wrong with me that this happened to me? So child 100% takes responsibility for all the hurts and pain and losses in childhood. So what we do is we go back and show how the brain and how our behavior changes because of the wounds. Then we go back in and understand this wound produced this behavior. See, and when we're wounded, we think everybody in our world has an agenda against us. We think everybody can see through us. And so we end up failing in areas. We have tremendous talents. We are gifted in things, but we never can take advantage of it because we feel that we're flawed and defective. So our gifts have been neutralized by our attitude because of the wounds of childhood. So this denial system is great because we're afraid of the pain. And there's always going to be pain to go back and look at the wounds of childhood. But the problem is, if we don't go look at it and bear the pain one time, and see, the brain is set up to bear the pain one time, not live in the pain off and on for the rest of our life. And so, like my mother, she was the same way. Oh, that was then and this is now. And she denied things happened, yet one time we were talking about sexual abuse. And she said, you know, and she's very protective of her reputation, but she said, we had an uncle that molested all of us children. But me. He didn't molest me. See, the denial systems are great because we have never had the skills to deal with it. And so what Life Skills does is, because of my deep, deep wounds, I had a traumatic birth and almost died in a birth canal. And so my subconscious says my world's not safe. I was molested at 3.5. I was abandoned by my parents for a reason they thought was legitimate, but I saw that I was abandoned for quite a while and put into a home that was a minister who was abusive. I was raped at 8 by an older man. At 13, I was molested for 13 months by a teacher in junior high school. So I had a lot of wounds. My behavior was whacked. If you knew me in those days, you would say that is the most wacko person I've ever met in my life. And I know that. I know what my behavior was. I used to sit and think, I might as well be dead because I am so defective and so flawed, nothing is ever going to happen good for me. And I knew that. I didn't know. No, there was nobody there to tell me, Paul Hegstrom, you've got lots of talent. You've got some God-given gifts. You've got a lot happening for you. But somewhere you've gotten the idea that you're defective and flawed, and you're acting out. See, and one of the things we have to look at is when I had heart surgery about 10 years ago. I went to the doctor, and the doctor asked me some questions, and we knew that I needed a bypass. And I ended up with 5 bypasses, but we knew I had heart disease. I knew it, and he knew it, by the symptoms in my body. And so I went in and had 5 bypasses and didn't do well for a while, but came out of it, and I'm still here. But the emotional, the part of the brain that deals with the emotions, also has symptoms. And my lifelong journey, and after I started recovery and started writing this program, was to find out what happened in childhood that produces these symptoms. And there will be maybe a cluster of things that happened. It may be long-term abuse. It may be something that was so devastating one time, but they still cause behaviors for the rest of our lives. And so I can talk to somebody for 15, 20 minutes, and I can tell you and pinpoint where the wound is and at what age and what stage of development. So give you an example of this. In little children, up to about 3 years of age, and especially about 11, 12, 13 months, they start to crawl. And you mothers know this. When they start to get mobile and crawl, they'll crawl away for a little bit, maybe 6 foot across the floor, and sit up on one hip and look back, see if mommy's still there. Because their brain is set up, if I can't see mommy, mommy doesn't exist. So the child then will go around the corner and then doesn't see mommy, so peek back around, see if mommy's still there. If a child has been rejected in that area, and there are many ways to reject a child in that area. Children will see going to a nursery school too early that's abandonment. That's how they see it. They don't have any other way. What's wrong with me that I can't be with my mommy? And that could arrest the development. So that'd be a piece of rejection. Arrest the development. So that person grows up and marries, but and say, let's use a man, because men are more prone to this. He stalks his wife, although she's given no reason. In other words, she goes to work, and he calls her 6 times a day, because he's stuck back in that age bracket that if I can't see her, she doesn't exist. If I can't see something, it doesn't exist. So just to give you a broad spectrum, he'll call her. His greatest fear is that she'll never come back. And he's got to see her. On the other side of that, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. So the IRS comes and we owe money. So we put the letter in a drawer and shut the drawer and don't open it. Because if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. See how this works? It's now not just mommy, and I'm sitting on one hip looking back to see if mommy's still there. I'm affected in all areas of my life because I'm stuck back at 2, 3 years of age, or less than 2 years of age. And so the rejection wound would cause things like, I don't open my bills. If I don't have the money, I don't open my invoices or my bills. I throw them in a drawer, and I talked to someone that was in therapy with our primary therapist, and their unopened mail was somewhere in the area of 4.5 foot tall, stacked, because they could not stand to see what was going on because they felt helpless, could not resolve conflict. See, so we get stuck in those areas. Some may see, as we talked about, the sexual, the emotional, the physical abuse. The only way to resolve anything is go physical on somebody, whether it be the children or a wife or a husband or whatever the case may be. And so we see that the wounds have to be dealt with if we're really going to grow up and mature and be able to resolve conflicts. We have to resolve our own first. Too much of the time is we marry, and we marry someone we hope can resolve the conflicts. So what happens is something goes wrong in my life, so I look to Judy to resolve my conflict for me, then I'm looking at her as a mommy. and I lose my sex drive for her, because she's now fulfilling another role which she shouldn't fulfill. She then is hurt and wounded and looks at me to resolve her conflicts, and sees me as a daddy, and she loses her sex drive for me, but doesn't lose her sex drive. And here we've come together trying to get somebody else to resolve our conflicts, and we found somebody that couldn't resolve theirs or ours, and neither of us have anybody to resolve. And so now we're the enemy again. See, and all this just dominoes down the line. And the older we get, and in the area we live today, the culture we live in today, it's a throwaway marriage. And we try somebody else, but we never get help, and we end up replicating. Because we never get help, we go back to the same type of thing. So it's very imperative that we deal with the wounds of childhood and start to grow up. And we can grow up. And the one thing that I will say, and I say it publicly, is they will tell you in mental health that fixation, the brain, can never be emotionally restarted. But life skills has learned how to restart fixation and mature. So we're able to do that and bring healing to the wounds of childhood, get off the adrenaline, and restart the maturing process.
You have been listening to Arrested Development Ministry podcast. For more information, feedback, or to contact us, our email address is arrested.development.g51@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and you can look for us where you receive your podcast. Always remember, you may have been broken, but you are not beyond repair. Thank you for listening.